Hey everyone, this is Matthew Skopic. Welcome to the first ever episode of How I Do Stuff. Today I'm going to talk about how I create drones or pads, and I use them musically within Ableton as a playback mechanism for theater. Some quick shortcuts that I do to help workflow under the pressure of cue to cue or any tech periods or tight rehearsal periods that you need to do. How to make it elastic, how to create a lot of flexibility out of these so-called clips. And then I'm also going to dive into how I start to launch quantize music creatively within Ableton. Also helping us to be flexible in terms of the timing of text performance that we're lining up to, and how to do it and create some musical magic so we're not skipping around all the place. So let's dive straight in. For this example here, I'm going to create a few drones using a Spitfire Labs plugin you can get for free in some of their libraries. Starting with our Spitfire Labs plugin, let's just try a few notes and see if we're happy with the tone of this. I like that. There's a nice decay. Let's just try something low like that too. That's good. I think this is a great starting point. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to just create a new capture track in Ableton and just get it to listen to that first Labs track. So I'm going to arm it, and then I'm going to just record a clip and then play the note. I'm very careful of how long I play the note. I don't need to go too long. I don't need to go too short. There's a Goldilocks zone in there. The trick is keep recording even after you've released the key. Get that decay in there. You're going to want that. Then for organization, I'm going to just rename this. I believe I played a C1, so I'm just going to label it C1. That's the 2 octaves below C3 on my keyboard here. Then in that clip here, I'm just going to set a rough loop point for it. As you'll hear here, you're hearing a bit of skipping in that loop. I know that drives sound designers crazy. For our purposes here, that's actually not important. We're going to work around that with some effects on it. I'm going to carry on and do the G1. Same idea. Good enough. Could have got more decay maybe. Try it again. I'm going to repeat that process and do a G1. Let it decay. And stop. I'm going to repeat this process of creating these loops. Basic loop points, they're all good. I'm going to just move my way up the keyboard, do maybe a C2, G2, C3, and maybe a G3 if I feel lucky today. Great, that's all good. I think I'll stop there. For purposes of this is actually a template file that I use for a lot of projects. I've been storing little ambiances and drones in here and doing this technique for quite a while here. So as you can see here that I have quite a few tracks of different styles of instruments all doing drones and stuff, and they're all labeled based off of what a shorthand nickname may be that I can really get to really quick. In this case here, I'm going to name this Labs one something here. I'm going to do a quick collect all and save. This is important, and then we're going to keep this file on our computer to access in our playback set. So once that's done, we can close this up. And I'm just going to fast forward here. I'm just building myself a quick demo set to show this technique in. This is just how I like to set up Ableton for theater playback. And it's rocking along. If you have any questions about this, feel free to please shoot me an email. I'll provide my email at the end of the video. A major disclaimer in this video, please ignore all of my metering levels throughout this demo. This is not how I would level things off in a theater. Obviously, in a theater setting, we need massive dynamic range, and that is not something that would translate in this video. So ignore the metering. It is only there so you can hear it. So a major technique that I use is relying on that original Ableton set that I built those ambiances in. Now, within Ableton's file structure, you can easily access this folder and all of its contents on a moment's notice. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on Add Folder, and then navigate to where I've saved that set that has all my pads in. Now that I have it there, we can have quick access to it. And you'll notice that when I actually go to it and explore it in the Ableton Finder here, that we see all of our tracks that were in our original pad set. Here you can see multitudes of them. Now, when I pop open one of those tracks, like our labs one that we just did, you'll notice that it has all of my clips. And that's why I labeled them with the notes that I was playing. So I have quick, easy access to them. Now it's as simple as throwing them in what I call my ambience tracks. My ambience tracks have quite a bit of reverb on them, typically. That reverb is going to help us when we get to these weird loop points. And that clip should loop for a second time here. And that gap isn't as evident when we're going through a large plate verb or in my case, a cathedral verb. I really like the cathedral setting and doing some tweaks to it. So I've laid in that first C note that I've done, and I'm going to add in a second Q. So maybe this is a shift in text or dialogue or something. Removing the E stop for the next Q to keep that initial note going. And here as we bring in the second one, we can hear the layer coming on top of it. Now, what I don't like about this second clip is it just comes in too hot. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to unlink the clip envelope from it and just give it a longer fade in, longer than the clip itself actually is. We'll just hear it creeping in a bit more. That's pretty good. I like that. Not too happy with this loop point. I'm just going to shift this a little bit. I don't like that little warble. I kind of like that. It's giving it a rhythm now. Let's just throw in another clip here. We'll keep those first two clips going by removing their E stops. I don't really want a G note here, so what I'm going to do is actually go into the transposition of the clip. And let's tune it up 3 semitones so it becomes an A sharp. Just to add some tension, I'm just going to rename it A sharp just so I know what it is. I'm just going to turn that launch quantization to none. It should always just be none when you're doing it in theater mode. We don't need to wait for anything. But that launch quantization we will come back to of how to creatively use it for music. That sounds pretty good. I'm going to add in a different clip into here from my library, some what I call my 9-inch nail pads that I kind of created. I believe I used Serum to make these. And we're just going to kill the initial 2 and then keep the third going on top of this one. We'll do a G just so we get a bit of dissonance. Maybe not necessarily dissonance, maybe more of a minor feel to it. It's a pretty good shift. I like that one. The main function here is that we're getting all of our drones into our playback file extremely quickly, extremely accurately. We can go in, we can change pitch, we can change timing of it to our likes. Now I'm just going to go back into a music file that I created. There's 3 parts that I have to this. First is a bit of a more like an evolution kind of feel track. There's a couple woodwind tracks doing this. I like what they're doing there. So that's going to be the first of 3 musical cues that we introduce to this. The second is a 2-parter. It's a bit of a woodwind phrase that is just going to land on a note. I believe that's a C, I think it lands on. The third part is the major music piece. Big, probably used for a transitional piece of some sort. So we're going to kind of build up and get into that. Just going to fix some issues with the woodwind in this section. It is... Yeah, that's good. Back into the second part, we have some string arpeggiations, just rocking a chord here. Really tight to the 105 BPM beat. We're going to visit how we're going to launch quantize this. So these are going to be rendered as a secondary part in this cue. I'm just going to fast forward through all of my rendering of this. There'll initially be the equivalents of 3 cues and probably a couple files per each cue. Now back in our actual playback set here, I'm just going to start to layer these cues in using the Michael Walton cueing method of skipping numbers. Q33 is going to be that nice woodwind ambience that I have. I'm going to put 105 BPM in there because what you're going to see in the top left, it'll change Ableton's BPM playback when we launch that scene. Second to that, with the next phrase that comes in, that's going to be those spiccato strings. We're going to put 4/4 at the end of that. And what that's going to do is it's going to set the beat, not the measure number, back to 1. So we'll watch that when we play that back. I'm just going to go through and number these pad cues. Right, it's all working here. Now let's just throw in our first set of those woodwind pads. I believe we have 2 of those. Throw those onto some of our ambience tracks here into our Q33. Just going to adjust the warp markers and make sure it plays back at the 105 BPM, and then clean up the loop points on that. I'll just repeat that process here for the second one. I'm going to take a quick snapshot of all of my settings of devices and mixers. And just fire through these really quick just to get a sense of the transitions. And to Q31. And then our pads go. Just going to adjust some reverb settings on those. I'm not too happy with that. That's better. Nice and cleaner. We can actually hear what we're working with. Just bring it down a bit. Good. Let's take a snapshot of that with a recall time of 2 seconds. And I want those to carry through when we bring in the phrasing. So I'm going to remove the e-stops. And then let's bring in, first we have the woodwind phrase. Let's just get our warp markers correct here. Yeah, that's great. Let's just put some verb on that. Yeah, I like where that's sitting. A little dreamy. Could fit underneath text. And then let's bring in our nice little spiccato arpeggiation thing. You can see here my render has a bit of an issue at the end here. I didn't track a couple parameters through it. But that's all good because we can use the first part of that loop. And we can make it go indefinitely. It can be elastic based off of timing of text performance. They can take all the time they want, or they can Go really quick. It's just going to ride that one chord, and that's really important because then we're not interrupting a musical phrase. Once we're in that chord, kind of going repeating, it's easy to interrupt at any point. The other thing I think about this clip here is I just wanted to have a longer fade in, so I'm just going to unlink the volume envelope from it and just let it fade in naturally. Yeah, that sounds good. So here's coming from the pads. That's good. It's got a nice sense of anticipation of maybe a transition coming in. So speaking of transition, let's just throw our big musical piece in here. Obviously, this doesn't want to loop, and I didn't render a long piece here just for this demo purpose. Banging. That's banging. This is where we're going to do something kind of crazy with the music launching. So you'll notice in Q35 we have that 4/4. We'll talk about that in a second. But on this big music here, we're going to change its launch quantization from global, which was none, to become 1/4. So it's going to come in on the quarter beat. Added to that, I want the Q35 music to stop on a quarter beat. So what I'm going to do is make a copy of them, turn all of their volume down, and I'm going to make those also have a launch quantization of 1/4. So when we play the first Q here, we can watch our clock at the top. When I launch Q35, our timer will reset to 1 beat. There you see it goes. If we watch our metronome here, whenever we launch Q37, it'll always come in on the quarter beat. So that's a nice feature because it allows for some flexibility in the calling. The stage manager still may want to call that as tight as they can, but it'll just wait that extra little hair for the quarter beat to go. I honestly think nothing's worse than music skipping in a theater show. It just throws me off, so I'd rather wait that extra little hair for the quarter beat, and it'll feel natural. And I'm just going to walk through this these pads here and just clean up some stuff, and then we'll run this again. I think I want to do something a little more interesting with this one here. Turn it down a bit. Again, all these clip modulations here that we're doing are elastic. They're non-destructive, so you can go back in and change them at any point. Let's do something interesting with this A sharp. I'm going to do something by automating its clip transposition. So we're going to give it some warble, maybe something just to make it feel a little polluted. So if I unlink this, I can get a longer throw to do this in. And I'm going to put a start point in. The start point of the loop is around 3. And I kind of want to land back at that 0 just so it feels natural when it comes down. I feel a bit warpy in there, so I'm just going to change the algorithm of how that Ableton is looking at that. We're going to go to complex. It might just feel a little better. Q33, go. Q35, go. I'm going to remove some E-stops here and just to make sure that these woodwind pads fade out. Just take a snapshot to bring them down. They'll come down when the big music comes in. Q37, go. So that's how I do stuff. If you like what I've done and you want to use this methodology in your work, I highly encourage that. In fact, drop me a line and let me know you're using it. I'd love to hear people that are using it and maybe any creative insight that you have on it.